The Democratic strategist Rochelle Ritchie, along with attorney Jenna Ellis, former New York Republican Congresswoman Nan Hayworth. All right. If that is the final offer, Rochelle, then what?
She needs to come forward. It's time.
So if she doesn't, and they've offered a number of opportunities?
I think that even if she does or doesn't, I think they're going to move forward. I really do think they're going to move forward regardless, simply because this was so long ago and there's not a lot of evidence. And even though she took a lie detector test, it's not admissible in court. And she has letters from or notes from her therapist, I believe.
Right.
I think that they are giving her an opportunity to speak up so that she's had an opportunity. But I think that regardless, I think they're going to move forward.
They do plan to say, Jenna, that all right, we've given you every opportunity. We've moved a lot of goalposts here to accommodate you, and you've not responded, or your lawyers haven't let you respond. So we've got to get going on this. What do you think the reaction will be to that?
I think that's entirely fair, because if we remember the context of the Senate confirmation hearing, this isn't a criminal trial. They should move forward with the process. They've allowed her the opportunity to speak. And so for the American public, I mean, what the Senate does in this is going to have a profound precedent on future confirmation hearings. And so if Chuck Grassley allows one person, whether or not the allegation is proved, whether or not she can prove it, whether or not she ultimately testifies, what they do is going to set a precedent for what happens in this country. And if one person can completely derail the system based on their own negotiation tactics and say, I'm going to stall the Senate from doing their job, that is setting a very bad precedent for anyone to come.
What do you think?
Jenna and Rochelle have both made superb points. I would add two things that I think Americans looking at all this have to keep in mind. One is that this process and Dr. Blasey and Judge Kavanaugh and all of us were disserved by Senator Feinstein and her staff, who were fully empowered to bring this allegation to the committee. They do have procedures. This actually is not a random, chaotic thing. And Greg Nunziata wrote about it in the Weekly Standard.
Right.
They could have evaluated this in complete confidence and with complete respect for Dr. Blasey, which of course is what we want to see. And the second point is, I think there's a tell in these prolonged negotiations by Dr. Blasey's legal team, which, by the way, is at least partially, if not completely, funded effectively by George Soros and his organizations. And that is this: their insistence that Dr. Blasey speak after Judge Kavanaugh. Why? That makes no sense.
Well, they're not.
Yeah, I wonder what the strategy is.
They're not ceding to that, but you know, Rochelle, the point that I was curious about is the insistence also on the FBI investigating this, and Democrats use the fact that they did so, and there was an investigation in the Anita Hill, Clarence Thomas investigation. Now, what was the distinction there?
Well, I think when you look at Anita Hill, I think it was two different things. You have an allegation of sexual assault, and you have Anita Hill's allegation of sexual harassment as an employee. So I think that is the difference that we're seeing. And I know that people bring up Anita Hill, but I think that's a distinct difference that I see.
And
also,
they worked
Anita
at a
Hill,
federal agency.
Right, exactly.
And they also, exactly. So they also worked at a federal agency.
Right.
And this is one thing that we were discussing in the green room before we came out here to speak with you, that I think is really important for people to understand, that a lot of this has to do with Roe versus Wade, right? Yes. A lot of people are upset about this, but people have got to start reading and researching things for themselves, because if Roe versus Wade is overturned or overruled or whatever,
which Judge Kavanaugh has not said he would do, by the way.
If it is, though, the states are going to be the one deciding women's reproductive rights. So if your state, if you live in New York like I do, and Andrew Cuomo still allows for abortions in New York, you can still get abortions in New York.
And
so
constitutionally speaking, that's actually the proper thing to do, regardless of what side you fall on. And this is where women as voters need to recognize what the issues actually are.
But are women as voters turned off, and we were discussing this earlier, by this process that is made to look like a bunch of old white men dictating the course of something that they are dismissing? That's the rap it gets.
I think that women need to understand the process. We need to be pro-women. We need to be pro-men. We need to be pro-truth. And that's what, especially for the evangelical Christians, women who are coming out and voting and who are pro-life, we need to always be on the side of the truth here, and we need to be on the side of the rule of law.
You don't buy some of these polls that show that support for the judges slipped, particularly among women, and maybe because of the back and forth on this?
I would urge, I think Rochelle and Jenna, again, are exactly on point. We need to be informed. And if we want to look and see, where do we lay responsibility, if you will, realistically, for the fact that this process has gone as it has threatened to go off the rails? Senator Feinstein and her staff had the opportunity.
I understand.
To
We got to move
right.
forward here.
But they have to have that understanding.
I understand. The vote goes forward. Let's say the vote goes forward without her. Does that help or hurt the judge?
You know, I think that he wins. I mean, I don't think it hurts.
Yeah, I don't know.
I
don't know if it's a slam dunk in that case.
It should help him because the burden of proof is always on the person bringing the claim. We can't lose sight of that. And again, that's why we have to be pro her as well.
Would any of these wayward Democrats from states that Trump won big be so affected? I don't think it would be.
I don't think so at all. And I think that this is why this is a political question, and it shouldn't. This should be about truth.
And it's a political problem for them in their states because
in
their states
support
Judge Kavanaugh, rightly so.
Guys, thank you all very, very much. That is